So we've been doing this series of videos, so we get a chance for really people have a chance to hear your story, and we get to tell everyone that is part of our network of people a little bit more about what we're going to be doing in Guatemala. But we don't want them to just know about what we're doing our week while we're there, but actually know y'all's story because it's a compelling one. And so last video we got to hear from Rachel a little bit about your journey going from Round Rock to now living, full time in Guatemala and doing ministry there, which is really awesome. So, Mynor, you and Rachel, when y'all came to visit, we got the opportunity to have you guys over for a lunch and just to sit and hear some of your story. And I just thought it would be helpful for people to hear a little more about
Mm,
your journey because you grew up in Guatemala, as we've already
mm.
talked about previously, and talk a little bit about what that was like growing up in Guatemala City.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Hi, everybody. My name is Mynor. I'm from Guatemala, and I grew up in the city. Um, yeah, the place where I grew up is we call it red zones, something like that.
Okay,
It's like a
that's
dangerous
a yeah.
areas. Yeah, yeah. My context is just to be surrounded about gangs and drugs and yeah, and that's not just drugs. It's like cartels, something like that. And
Mm,
yeah, that's my context. But I remember that since I remember when I have like 8 years old, I started to play soccer in a team, and that helped me a lot to be like trying to save me to from the gangs. That was like escape for me.
yeah,
The football soccer, yeah. So yeah, I remember just playing soccer since I have 8 years old, and that's my passion. So
yeah,
yeah, a lot of my friends they take other decisions. They work with the gangs, and they was part of that. And in 2018, I make like a statistic or something like that about my background, and the 90% of my friends they was murdered from the gangs,
wow,
or for the gangs, yeah. So it's pretty sad,
yeah,
but it's the reality here in Guatemala, in the city.
yeah,
Is something that I God put in my heart, like work in these areas and trying to connect kids and youth with me, with Jesus. So
yeah,
that's the difference, because He do that difference with me. Um, um, since I remember, I was part of a church, but I never received like a discipleship, something Bible discovering, or I never received that. And I remember trying to find a person of peace or someone who can teach me, and I can find it inside of the
yeah,
church. So that's something also in the church in Guatemala needs to um, like wake up and do this kind of work on the streets. So it's that's one of my passion is also discipleship and trying to
yeah,
connect with kids and youth, teaching the Bible and using the sports. Um, it's that's my heart, and yeah, because I grew up in that context. Now it's something that I see is so important in the church, not just in Guatemala. It's in
mm,
all the places, in all the countries, in around the world. Is discipleship, teach the Bible,
yeah,
connect
yeah,
with Jesus, and they can do more disciples, and that's our work here in Guatemala. It's make disciples who can make more disciples, and
yeah,
yeah, the sport is just like a connection point
yeah,
for us. So yeah, I remember I started grew up in the ministry. God called me to do like work on the streets. I remember one of my friends was dying on the streets in my neighborhood, and I remember his last breath. I understand that, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
his last breath when I was with him. And
wow,
that was so hard for me, and that moved me to the hospitals in emergencies, trying to pray with
yeah,
persons. they received shots or knife or something, but they was close to die in emergency, and I just be there for them and pray, trying to connect on the last breath with Jesus. So that's something that give me a passion to move to the jails and trying
Yeah.
to like provide a different worldview about Jesus inside of the prisons. I work in that places like for like maybe 3 years, and then God called me to work in prevention with the kids. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember watching a gang member playing with a small soccer ball, like a tennis ball, like a kid. He was just
Wow.
playing there, I see them. I see him, and I think he's like a kid, you know.
Yeah.
It's because they never lived their childhood in a good way, in a
Yep.
healthy way. So
Yep.
God put in my heart like work in prevention, because
Yep.
they they need a intervention, but I need someone who can connect that kids and youth with me. So I say
Yep.
I can try to do that, and I start my soccer academy in one of the most dangerous area here in Guatemala. That you're gonna be there with me and Rachel and your family. So I gonna show you a little bit about the program. It's a huge garbage dump, and all the gangs and drug dealers and sicarios and all that stuff is in that place. And I do ministry there for many many years, and right now we are not involved directly, but we have a few mentors there, like we support them.
Yeah.
Um, so I started to work in prevention in that area. So that moved me to the all to visit all the dangerous areas in Guatemala. So I know all the streets. I know all
Yeah.
the bad neighborhoods, the red areas, and yeah, that gave me the experience to start sport academies, mentor others mentors for the kids, and that's what we do right now, trying to share
Yeah.
that experience using the sports and teach the Bible and different contexts, rural areas, urban like neighborhoods and cities, and also other countries. So we are trying to build team in Ecuador and Nicaragua and help others just to do what God called us to do about
Yeah.
teach
Yeah.
Bible and share life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's part of my my history, and now, but we are working more in the mountains, trying to work with the unreached people. I call it invisible people because it's people living inside of the mountains, but nobody knows that they are living
Yeah.
there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that I feel like encouraged to do with Rachel this year. Yeah, invest
Hmm.
more in these areas. Yes.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. I love that, Minor. I think like listening to you, and I've tried to share your story some with others here that have asked about Guatemala, and even like why we're going. And I know what you said is really powerful. That when you were working in the hospitals and in the prisons, you were kind of on the like people were already, basically living out the consequences of
mm,
not choosing something different as a younger person. And so, like to see you get on the prevention side, as you talked about, and trying to say, hey, like how can we help these kids make a choice now where they don't end up, in the
yeah.
hospital or dead or in prison. So I love your heart for that. I know that you guys, as you just mentioned, uh, have done the 4x4. We're going up into
Mm,
to minister to these invisible people, you call them, because they're a little bit off the grid. I know you talked about that when we had lunch, that
mm,
many of these people are trying to avoid the cartels. They're just
mm,
trying to like be away from the violence and away from kind of the challenges that are within I guess a society where there's just a lack of protection
mm,
and authority structure. Um, but I know you also talked a little bit about how, and I think in the first video, you talked a little bit about how these people sort of they have a syncretism, is I guess you call
mm.
that, where like
Yeah.
they try to merge a little bit of um, their Mayan background within like Catholicism and this sort of superstitious way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk about that just for a second. Like, what is that like? How do you share the gospel with someone that has that kind of a worldview perspective?
Yeah, so it's like a mindset that the people have in the communities inside of the mountains, and but it's ignorance about a lot of stuff. Oh, so it's as I say, it's like a mindset that the people have inside of
Yep.
the communities, because it's cultural. You know, it's because they grew up in that areas, is what they know. It's the only one, the only thing that they know. So it's hard trying to change the mindset of that communities, but I have experience sharing the gospel with different generations inside of the community. So it's like the old people. It's people who suffer the national conflict that we have in Guatemala, like 25 years ago, and they receive a lot of attacks from the army and the conflict
Yep.
inside. It was like a war. So the old people, so they have like a lot of anger in their hearts, and that's one generation. The second generation is like the middle generation is like fathers and mothers right now, like
Mm.
30s, 40s, that they just grew up also carrying that anger that the old people have, you know. So um, it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to share love with them because they never receive love. So the gospel is
Yep.
love. So when we trying to help them, we visit their homes, we share a meal with them, we share all resources, or just we just go and talk with them and
Mm.
share time, you know, make connections. So that's
Yeah.
that's something that make a difference in these communities, and they really appreciate how many hours we travel just to visit them. It's
Wow.
Yeah, it's like 12 hours driving and buses and 4x4 and walking. So
Yeah.
when we are in that house with them, in their house with them, they really love that. They say, oh,
Wow.
they have a good message for me, and they travel to tell me this is about Jesus. So
Yeah.
but we are thinking more in change the next generation, working with the kids, because
Mm-hmm.
they now they have a small window learning Spanish because they talk Mayan language. Most of the people in that areas talk Mayan language, but the kids, they have a small window learning Spanish, and we can change that generation in the communities through the
Yeah.
kids and share the gospel. So
Yeah.
we receive more answer about the gospel coming from the kids.
Mm.
That's something important, but we always trying to invest in the whole family.
Yeah.
That's our goal, is the family, and the kids, they work as a missionaries because they receive the message, and they share the gospel in their houses. So
Yeah.
it's something that we're gonna do in that week with you. It's like share the gospel with a lot of kids because they are missionaries inside of their homes. So yeah,
Love that.
it's hard to change the mindset, but
Yeah.
we believe that God and Jesus can do what everything, you know. But we need to connect and trying
Yeah.
to mobilize that message to them. Yeah. So it's beautiful.
Yeah. No. Well, we can't wait to be there, get to see some of that. I love that imagery of you guys. You know, you're talking about going and those 12 hours of all the bumpy roads and slow pace and just trying to get to these places, and
Mm.
then there's people saying, hey, you came all this way to talk to me. Like, what an awesome picture that is. And it's the heart of God, right, to
Mm.
say,
Yes.
I'm going to come to you, I'm going to pursue you, I'm going to, you know, obviously he crossed um, the universe to be with us. And so just I love the picture of that. And then this idea that kids are missionaries in their
Mm.
homes, that really resonates. You know, I think even we see that in the States, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
when kids get the gospel, it's an opportunity for them to go home and ask mom and dad questions and prompt them to
Mm-hmm.
think about what they believe. And
Yeah.
so I love that ministry you are doing there. And again, can't wait to be down there and see it firsthand and to participate with y'all. And partner with you. So in our next video, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about how people can partner with you, but thanks, Mynor, for sharing your story.
It's a pleasure, Nick. Thank you so much.